The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv, and a torrential rain predicted Wednesday and Thursday. So
I know. I guess we're getting the remnants of a hurricane.
Yeah. I think late tonight we're supposed to get really torrential rains, and we could get up to 5 inches. There's a flood warning out now. So now instead of the COVID report, we got the weather guy.
So I can go swimming. I can go swimming at Stafford Square.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. So
it's gonna be deeper than usual. Instead of it being wading level, it's gonna be about 3 feet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we are less than 3 weeks away from the preliminary election, the primary.
20 days to be exact.
20 days to be exact. Exactly. Yesterday was 3 weeks to the day. And so everybody out there, put on your thinking caps, start paying attention to what has been done, what hasn't been done, what's been promised, and what was promised, and everything else. Do your homework, but by all means, vote.
And remember, today is the final day to make any changes to your voter registration, whether that be your address, your party, or if you just want to verify that your registration is active. Because remember, if you didn't file your census, they can make your registration inactive until you file a census form. So if you need to call the elections office, it's 508-324-2630. That's 508-324-2630. And they'll be more than happy to walk you through the process or to, let you know if your registration's active. And the other thing is the office will be open until 8 p.m. this evening to handle last minutes. So feel free to jump in and do what you need to do. They're going to stay there overtime just for you. So go pay them a visit, bring them a coffee.
Well, I'll be down at the government center right after the show for a meeting. So, but I might check while I don't have time. Actually, I got to get the dog to the vet. So I'll have someone check for me. That's all. If they give me a buzz, I'll have to call them later. But I think I did file a census, but then again, that doesn't mean it was actually it got there.
I used to file one every year, and they kept saying I never filed it, and then they stopped sending them to me altogether, and they said it was the vendor's fault. It's always the vendor's fault. But for the first time since they stopped sending them to me, I got one this year, so I was surprised.
Yeah, so everything is in campaign mode now. We don't hear a lot from anybody, from the candidates or anything else. They're out there doing whatever they're doing to campaign. And I don't know. There may be a few movies between now and. Are there any movies scheduled between now and?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's surprising.
I don't think so. But then again, they haven't handled the Flint shooting yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. They that we're not hearing a lot about that. That's the thing. You talk about transparency. We don't see a lot of transparency when it comes to that stuff. I mean, it started with Eddie Lambert saying we didn't have a gang problem. Now they admit we have a gang problem, and we had that tragic shooting up at Corky Row, and you would assume that the community would be kept in the loop about what's being done to make this a safer city, because obviously there are bullets flying around on a fairly rate. What was the number we got? 34. 34. So that's a lot.
Yeah, 34 shootings.
And I mean, right now, the last thing I heard was there were between 5 and 15 shots. So
right.
So I mean, I think it's time for our administration to step up and say, look, have a press conference with the police chief and go to the neighborhoods and talk to people about what's being done. I mean, I know the police are working on it, but it's the police chief's job to be working on it. It's the government's job to keep us in the loop. I think that's at least my feeling. It's not the police chief doesn't have to come and talk to. It doesn't have to tell us. He doesn't have to hold a press conference. Besides that, he'd probably get in trouble because then the politicians would say, wait a minute, you're stealing my photo op. And so I think we should be hearing a lot more about a lot of things, but especially about crime and shootings.
Well, it seems that the only time these shootings make news in Fall River is when somebody dies.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be the case. Every time there's a shooting of any type, we should know about it. And there should be a statement about it. Do they have any leads? Do they know who may have done it? Was it an accident? Was it purposeful? Was there a meaning behind it? Was it gang related? Was it drug related? Tell us what we want to know. You cannot solve the problem if you do not identify it. And we cannot play the ostrich with his head in the sand move, because that doesn't work either. We've lived that way for too long in Fall River, burying our heads in the sand.
No, you're right. You can't say we're working on it and just leave it at that. You can't. But, you talk about the paper. It's ironic because many, many, many years ago, when I was the president of Firefighters Union, I complained to the local newspaper about lack of coverage for some fires. We had a circumstance. We had 2 or 3 fires in a week. Guys did a great job, made a quick stop, which is actually the irony of it. When firefighting, when you do a really good job and you hold it to a room or you hold it to a portion and you save the property, and because you went in there and took the heat and the smoke and did your job, they don't cover it because their thing is, well, if the house didn't burn to the ground, it wasn't really a fire. Well, no, it was a fire, and it could have burned to the ground if the firefighters didn't do their jobs. And I called them up, and that's exactly what they told me. Unless the building burns to the ground or somebody dies in it, that's like 8. If we get it at all, it's 2 lines on page 9. There's no story about the operation or anything like that. And the fact that they were doing their job. And it's the same thing with this. You can't just say the only time we're going to talk about shootings is if somebody dies. You're right. This is a problem that has to be addressed, but it's not going to go away quickly. Gangs are a problem in every city in the country. And you have to deal with trying to get young people to not go into gangs. You have to deal with trying to get people out of gangs. And you have to keep an eye on the structure and what gangs are doing. And it's a very difficult problem. Nobody's making light of that problem. That problem is extremely complex. But, police departments have the resources to implement things. I mean, it's not like reinventing the wheel. LA's got thousands of gangs. New York City, big cities have, they have gang units and things. So there are, they can get resources and look at what other people have done. And I'm sure they are, because I'm sure the police, this is the majority of their work. This is the majority of their work. And it's going, okay. It
was your alarm.
Yeah. And this is the root of most of the problems, because let's face it, drugs, crime, they're interrelated. Drugs, crime, right? Gangs, drugs, crime. many gangs, especially in the bigger cities, traffic drugs.
Right.
So they even did it around here. Wasn't over in New Bedford? Weren't the Latin Kings a while back? 4 or 5 years back? Didn't they bust a bunch of Latin Kings that were trafficking a tremendous amount of drugs?
Yes, they did.
But you got to do something. I know that New Bedford actually had a state police unit that they had come in to assist them with the gang issues. Because as a matter of fact, I know the state trooper who was in charge of that particular unit. He used to be the commander of the Dartmouth Barracks, and he was in his last few years before he retired. He was in charge of the gang unit, state police gang unit that was assigned to New Bedford. So obviously, but like you said, the problem is we're kept in a dock.
Right.
And that's just not the right way to do it, in my opinion.
Nope, definitely not. Because remember, it is a public safety issue. People have the right to know what's going on in their neighborhood, and people have the right to feel safe in their neighborhood. And if the city is not going to be forthright and responsive to these issues, then we're not going to know. And I know the stories, oh, well, we can't jump on every single one because some of them are not really necessary to raise the fear of the general public. When there's a shooting and somebody gets injured, yes, we have to speak about it and we have to talk about it. But when it's just a shooting, yeah, just a shooting, we don't necessarily have to talk about it. Unless the bullet goes through somebody's house, goes through the wall in somebody's house. So it's, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of the fact that, we have to hear about shootings. I'm tired of the fact that we have no response from the administration. I'm tired of the fact that the police are bending over backwards trying to figure out which way is up with these people who are shooting. Where are they coming from? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? I mean, they're trying to answer all the questions, but they're not getting the answers. And the people want the answers, but they can't get them because the police can't get them. Now, you mentioned the state police unit that New Bedford had on gangs. Historically, I'm not saying now. I got to make this very clear. I'm not saying now. But historically, the Florida Police Department or the unions were totally against bringing in any outside law enforcement agencies like the state police or the sheriff's office to assist in investigations, patrolling, and whatnot, especially when we had a major problem with 9C cuts. So that was historically. I don't know about now. I mean, we have a new chief. He seems to be very amenable to different ideas. Maybe he can reach out to the state police and find out, if not for help, just to find out what they're doing, that maybe he can implement in Fall River to do the same thing. Don't remake the wheel. If you have something that's working somewhere else, bring it here.
No, you're right. And the issue is what you just said. I mean, to me, that's absolutely ludicrous to make a statement that, if the shots don't hit a building or don't kill somebody, we're just going to kind of like take it as a normal course. You're not supposed to discharge a firearm on a city street. I mean, that's
unless you live in Fall River.
That's not a shooting range.
That was rhetorical, people.
Yeah, you're right. But I mean, the lunacy of that. If people are, because number one, obviously, if somebody discharges a firearm in the city, that individual should not be carrying a firearm. He probably doesn't have a legal license to carry. He's probably got an illegal firearm, which means that he at some point in time, he's not going to use that for anything but nefarious activities. And the reality, and that to just say, oh, shots were fired, but nothing got hit. Who cares? It's not even going to But I mean, this is where you need, like I said, you need the community to be not only alerted, but the community can actually help in that. Remember, we used to have Crime Watch and stuff like that.
Yep.
People can say, well, there were shots fired. People become a little bit more alert if they look out the window and they got an anonymous hotline or something like that. They've had stuff like this before. And look, I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I know one thing, that there are a lot of experts out there on gangs, because LA, New York City, every major city in the United States has gang problems. And, there have been fairly successful programs. I know that they had some former gang members that were incarcerated, came out and established some, go to schools talking to the kids why gang life is not the life to choose. And then they couple with that with the cities creating programs to keep them occupied rather than joining a gang. And of course, the main thing is giving them a good enough education where they don't need to be in a gang, and that they can go out and get a job and have a productive life. And it's a very, very complex issue, but you need to address it. The more you ignore it, the worse it gets. And that's a fact. You can't ignore this. It is not going to go away. It's like our southern border. Well, we're ignoring the cartels. So what's going to happen now? We've seen fentanyl come in this country at a record rate, deaths at a record rate. And it's like, okay, we're just going to ignore it. Don't worry about it. If we ignore it, it'll go away. That's kind of like, keep your mouth shut, wait a few weeks, and everybody will forget about this. But they can't. It takes a toll in human life. It takes a toll. The drugs that are pouring in over the border are killing people every day. And it was just there was just a memorial yesterday, wasn't it?
Yes.
So about the people who died of overdoses. And
Overdose Awareness Day.
So whether I don't care what your position is on this thing, but the fact is that you have to sympathize with somebody who lost a loved one, because it takes a toll during their drug use, and even after if they overdose, it's devastating to the family. Nobody wants to lose their children in any way, shape, or form. Parents should not be burying their children, and that's just a fact. So we've got to deal with stuff like this. And I just don't see anything being done.
No, and now that you brought up the Overdose Awareness Day and what happened there, a lot of people did turn out for that, and people actually brought photographs of their children that had died from overdose, and they had put them up. They were more like poster boards, the size of political campaign signs. That's how big they were, and they put them up along Government Center. In Post Office Square, as they're calling it, and just to show the reality of those deaths. But here's a reality that a lot of people have not yet picked up on or talked about or done anything about. And that reality is that there is a Narcan shortage. Narcan is the drug they use when people overdose. And it reverses the effects of the opioids. They're an opioid antagonist. With that shortage, and why there's a shortage, I don't know if it's something to do with the manufacturing or whatever the case may be, but there's a shortage that could result in increased deaths because there's no way to reverse the effects of the opioids. And with the fact that there is now stronger fentanyl on the streets, these are other issues where our neighbors have to take into account what's going on in their neighborhood. Some people have taken the position that I'm not going to get involved because if I get involved, I'll have to go to court. I'll have to say something. They'll attack me. They'll shoot me, they'll beat me up, they'll destroy my property. And I can understand those concerns because, believe me, some of them are real. But at the same time, if you want to live in a safe neighborhood, if you make it so that they feel uncomfortable dealing drugs or firing firearms in your neighborhood, they won't do it. And how do you do that without, quote unquote, calling the police or whatever? Put cameras on your house. It's a one-time investment. Put the cameras on your house. Put them on all four corners of your house. Get one of those Ring bells so that you can look at the porch and the area there. And then if something happens, the police can come to you and say, hey, this is what's happening. Can we get your video? See if your video saw anything. And there you go. There's one way to help make your neighborhood safer without putting yourself in the line of fire, for the lack of a better expression. And I wasn't saying that to be facetious or to have a pun. But, Fall River is what the people make it. And right now, we're not making it much of anything good. We've spent $263 million on a school. $263 million. And at the same time, I'm looking at what they just did in Westport, where they built a middle school and a high school combination for $97 million. I wonder how they did that. Is it smaller? Most likely. Do they have as many programs? Probably not. But at the same time, they took into consideration the taxpayer. Something Fall River and Paul Coogan didn't do. Because remember, Paul Coogan was the big champion of this. And we know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we can't now, because every time you make a statement like that, you're going to get beat up as being anti-education.
And that's not the point at all.
Exactly. And the thing is that buildings do not educate children.
That's right.
And that's the problem because, remember the high school it was replacing was one of the most expensive high schools built. Few people went to jail. It was so expensive because a lot of people made a lot of money on the old high school. And the thing is, the academic achievement was not influenced at all. The fact that everybody wants to go around and say how pretty it is, and we've got fields like Newton, does not make 75% of this population get bachelor's degrees like they do in Newton. What it does is it's a warehouse. That's all it is. It's a warehouse. What takes place within that warehouse is what's important. The reality is that it's important to educate our children. Did we need to spend that much money? Probably not. Did we need AstroTurf? Probably not. Do we need fields as good as Newton? No, a baseball field is a baseball field. We've got a better field in Newton. But Newton puts out quality education. See, there's where you look at a tree and you don't see the forest. The forest is what is our education and attainment? It has been steadily dropping. But the tree is, look at the pretty building. Look at the pretty stairs. Look at the pretty windows. That's what they do to you. They're conning you. Did we have to spend this kind of money? And there was an idea, and I think it was a very good idea. It's done now, but a lot of communities do. Why didn't we build two smaller high schools like they did in Cranston East, Cranston West? Right? And then we wouldn't have the busing problems that we have now. It would be a lot easier. And we would also have, equity, as they like to say. The people in the South End have always been crapped on. Where's the high school? Ever since the old Durfee went, which was kind of centrally located. But now it's been in the North End. They make it convenient for the
rich and hoity-toity.
For the most well-to-do population. And there was never a consideration about building two schools. And we could have. Probably we could have. And come in under the price we paid for this fiasco. So, I mean, but that's, again, Fall River, it's like, always spend like a drunken sailor. But unlike a drunken sailor, he spends his own money. Spend the taxpayers' money. They spend money like we can blow away Newton with the extra money we got in our pocket. That's why the city never gets out of the damn hole. But that's what it is. It's, you're looking at this thing and they're going to have tours. Again, 9/11. Now they're talking about 9/11 again. Then how, let's never forget, except in Fall River.
That's it. That's it.
We forgot.
We've forgotten everything in Fall River. Hey, while you brought up that Cranston having 2 schools, they're smaller than Fall River, and they have 2 schools. How about Warwick? Warwick has 4 high schools. 4.
Yeah.
And they're smaller than Fall River.
Yeah.
And they have 4 high schools.
Yeah.
Well, Fall River has 1. Some people say, no, you have 2. No, we have 1. We have 1. And then we have the regional high school. But technically, if you want to get into it, Fall River has 3. We have Durfee, we have Argosy, and we have Atlantis. 3 high schools. But the other 2 high schools are, again, for the chosen. Not everybody can go to those schools. They can try to get in, but it doesn't mean they're going to get in.
No, absolutely not. And the thing is that, the way public education is going, you're going to see, I think, a lot more people are advocating school choice. To build more charter schools. And it's unfortunate because, a lot of people, they blame the teachers, and there are some really bad ones, like the one they showed that was calling the students and their parents stupid. Because
wait a minute. I know who you're talking about.
Y'all. No, not that. Not within our city, but there are a lot of great teachers out there. Teachers are, they get large classes. They don't get the support. What they get is a whole bunch of bosses. They get deans of students. They get all kinds of assistants to the assistant, assistant superintendents, vice principals, vice assistant to the vice principal, assistant to the vice principal, and all these jobs they create. They say, well, we got to do that because we got to spend the money. See, now, unlike a private school that has to watch, how they spend their money, if we don't spend it all, we don't get more. We got to keep getting more. So we got to create all these jobs. Well, how about this? How about expending that money into school programs? How about expending that money into hiring more teachers, giving them smaller classrooms? How about spending that money and earmarking it purely for students and education? There are a lot of good teachers out there that are very, very disappointed with the way school systems are set up and what their unions are doing by keeping them out of school and all this other stuff all over the country. And that could be their own downfall. And they know that. Because charter schools always outperform public schools. Why? Because, they have controls, and they also have, they're not upside down with management versus the people who are actually delivering the most critical thing of educating our children. Because the public school system, since ed reform, has been eviscerated. Now it needs reforming because now we have a vast difference between administrators and teachers.
Yep, I hear you. Oh, and don't forget something that has been a very quiet hush-hush thing is our school department has $54 million in COVID money that we haven't heard anything about yet. So I'm wondering where the mayor's going to spend that, seeing that he's got control now of $120 million. It's a lot of money. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We drop those bombs on you all the time. Sorry about that. Thanks for inviting us into your home. And remember, it's going to be a busy, long weekend because it's Labor Day weekend coming up, and there are things to do. Make sure you get out there and enjoy the time. Be careful with the weather. Thanks for inviting us into your home. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable.